Hello there, and thanks for joining us again today on Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Got a great program for you today as we look at issues related to family life, but some of the crises that takes place in the life of a family, some of the trauma that takes place in the life of a family. And sometimes we refer to this as crisis pregnancy. And we have two representatives today from the Kerman Center and Kerman Care Center, a center devoted to working with young people and with families who are entering into this kind of a crisis in their life of Crisis Pregnancy Center. So we have Pat Goosev, who is the director, or the founder, I guess, the founder of the Kerman Care Center, and that was what, 10, 12 years ago?
12 years ago, yes.
So you are the experienced one.
Oh, if you would like to say that.
We're going to call you the grandma. We're going to call you the grandma of the Kerman Care Center,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And then we have Marie Pacheco, who is also with us. She's the current director of the Kerman Care Center, and she's going to give us kind of the perspective of kind of where we are today and some of the issues that you are facing and have been facing. Now, you've only been on the job for 2 months or so.
Just a few months.
Just a few months. So you're learning, but you're going to teach us. You're going to teach everything you've learned already in 2 months.
I'm going to do my best to teach you everything I've learned in the hot seat over the last
But let me
2
put this
months.
in perspective today in a form of a quote. It'll tell you how we're going to go and how we're going to focus our issues today. So here's a quote for you to reflect on and kind of think about, okay? There are 8 rungs to charity. The highest is when you help a person to help himself or help herself. Mm-hmm. And that's the rung of charity that we're going to be looking at. It's what you people do to help someone help themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
And hopefully then, even more so, they pass it on to help someone else, help themselves.
Absolutely.
And we have this kind of process that goes on. So that's kind of where we are today. That's kind of what we're going to talk about in terms of what you people do to help somebody help themselves, well, they'll help somebody else. And that's the way we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, let me ask you this, Pat, since you founded this Kerman Care Center, why? 12 years ago, what was burning in your heart to do this?
Number one, it's the love of youth and children, and seeing how many are being raised now in dysfunctional families and without a lot of knowledge under their belt to bring them through these tough times. My great-grandmother was raped, and my grandmother was a product of that. And had we been in this era where abortion was possible, probably none of my family would be here right now. That's always resonated with me because my life I consider very precious, and my children's lives. And as a nurse, I was able to see a lot of things that I felt resulted from a lack of knowledge.
I see.
And hurting people. Yeah. And life could have been different for them had they known more. So
it's always a kind of a dilemma, isn't it, in terms of what do you do when you're in a crisis, in a particular crisis pregnancy center? Do you terminate it or do you not terminate it?
Yes.
And what you're saying is by not terminating that pregnancy years and years and years ago, look where you are today and look where you would not have been.
Correct.
As a family.
Correct.
So I gather you're a rich family, appreciated family.
To be very honest with you, my grandmother ended up being a nurse and served people for 50 years of her life. I've been a nurse for 50 years. My mother was a trained nurse who
really
took care of us through the war years.
And that would not have happened had the issue of pregnancy been so pronounced and they would have chosen that as the option.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
So all these years of nursing, that sounds like about 150 years
You've got
of total
it.
nursing.
You've got
even beyond that.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
So how did you come now 2 months ago and become the director of this? Pat retires and you come forward and you come forward to be what motivated you? What was the burn in your heart to do this?
Well, it was a calling for me. I, to be honest, did not expect to be sitting as executive director at the Kerman Care Center. I totally believe with all my heart it was beyond me. It was God's will. I was looking to come into a client services coordinator position, part-time to, I've been working with at-risk youth in one form or another
Yeah.
for the last 15 years.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
So when I came
Yeah.
across the ad for a client services coordinator, it appealed to me. And it was something that I wanted to get into. I've always been interested in getting involved with the youth. And so I seen this as an opportunity to do that. And I didn't follow up on that ad right away. I was actually helping my daughter look for a job at that time. But it kept calling
Yeah.
me. Something kept calling me back to that ad. And so I went back onto the ad and I read it. And it talked about, and I was telling Pat about this. I read this ad, and it talked about talking to the clients, the crisis based clientele that they have. It talked about marketing. It talked about fundraising. It talked about all of these things that I love, that I have a passion
Sure.
for, and I just felt compelled. I felt this was where I needed to try and apply for this position.
So
I
somehow
did.
those words got into your heart
They
somehow.
got into my heart. Funny thing is, when I went into the ad after I got into the executive director position, it didn't say anything that I remembered it saying.
Is that right?
Oh gosh, it's
You
a
read
funny
into it.
story. I read into it.
It was meant for you.
It was meant for me. It was meant for me.
Meant for you, yeah.
Yeah,
But you
so-
mentioned something in part of your talk there, the idea of teenagers
Yeah,
have been part of your life, and somehow or other, teens mean something to you.
absolutely.
Well, why? I mean, teenagers are teenagers,
Teenagers,
but to you, they must be different. There must be something important.
it's very personal for me. For one, I was born and raised in Kerman.
Oh, yes.
And I was a 15-year-old mother. I had 2 children by the time I was 18 years old. And I had a very, very difficult time.
Oh, you had had a tough time living life as a teenager. You
Right.
didn't live life as a teenager.
I did not live
The
life as a
teenager
teenager.
went away.
You know,
A
you
part
got to
of you,
grow
yeah.
up. You got to grow up. You have to take care of your
You were
family.
an adult
have
before
to
you were a
do-
teenager.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
And
trying
so,
to become an adult, maybe. That was, yeah.
So coming into this position at the Kerman Care Center and being able to be this valuable resource for teenagers in my community that are going through a similar circumstance, similar situation that I did as a young girl means absolutely everything to me.
Sure.
So my heart, my passion, is here with the center. I can't, it's amazing how God works. It's amazing that I'm here with you today,
Yeah.
and being able to share my story without any kind of taint to it. I've become proud of where I come from and what I've done with my life and how I've been able to become a published author by the time I was 25, to be working with at-risk youth over the last 15 years, and now here as an executive director,
Sure.
working with the community in Kerman, where I grew up. If this had been there when I was a young girl,
Oh,
it would have changed.
change your life and
It would have changed everything.
giving
for
you
me.
support and giving
all
you
of
direction
the
and
resources,
education.
absolutely.
And,
Everything that I would have needed.
uh-huh.
And for the last 15 years, I've been working with at-risk youth, but it's not just with young girls who find themselves in a situation of pregnancy. I've been more geared towards working with girls before they find themselves in that situation. So more on the abstinence side,
And the
more
preventative
on the
yeah.
value of themselves side. And when I came to apply for this position, I asked to use the bathroom. In the bathroom, they have this poster that says secondary virginity. And it caught my attention. Secondary virginity, what is that? And then it talks about the integrity of the young girl. And that's everything that I stand for. I want these girls to not just value themselves because they're virgins, but value themselves because they're beautiful young women. And so I have been going through and talking to young girls for years about their value, about how important they are beyond just their virginity.
Sure.
Every young girl, we think about the time that we're going to have that special relationship, right? You know, prom night or, you know, whatnot. And these girls, they engage in these ideas, these dreams of that special night. But then once that's over, then they don't find the value in that anymore. And I want them to find the value in themselves.
In themselves rather than in a situation or an event.
Exactly. And to still, it's still important that who you decide to share yourself to be with in that way is still important beyond that first time. And so I've been going out and I've just been talking to anybody who would listen. I've been going through Teach One to Lead One, which was a program that I first worked with many, many years ago in Ripperton. That's a little town between Kerman and Madera. I've gone to the juvenile halls. I've done anything and everything I could just to touch them, just to let them hear that there's somebody in the world that thinks that they're beautiful.
Do you think that's a need, though, with our teenagers today, as somebody to, as you did, reach out to them?
Absolutely.
Rather than for them to come to you.
I think it's...
You went where they were. You went to find them, and then you went to touch their lives. I mean, is that what you've done all along the way? Is that what the whole center was about when you started it? Was kind of an outreach kind of a thing, rather than just a place for somebody to come?
Yes. Yes, it's very important because I don't think youth or even adults, unless there's a relationship built, I don't think they're going to be inclined to come to you because there's not a trust there.
No.
Why should they expose?
You're just a name.
Yes.
You're just a name, or you're a building or whatever.
Yes. And they're in a precarious situation, and we're in a very small town. So to just walk in the doors where other people would know who they were, look, they're in trouble. They're going to the care center. You know, it's been difficult to bring clients in the doors. Most of our work is footwork, going out to where the girls are, going to the schools, going to their youth ministries, going out to the different churches in the community and building relationships, letting them know that it is a safe place. They can come in these doors.
Then do they come?
They do.
I mean, you try to build that initial contact, or what we'll call trust.
Yes.
And then they come.
Yes.
They come.
And then it's word of mouth. They tell their friends that are having problems that that's a safe place for them to come.
So the word follows.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maria, you said something a while ago, and that is the idea of a girl becoming an adult before becoming a teenager, or before really developing their teenage life. How do you help a child? How do you help a teenager? How do you help a person become the adult when they're really not through their teenagers yet?
You know,
Make the adult decision, take adult responsibility, all that.
it's different for every single one of them. There's really no straight track of how you can get a person to understand their new role and responsibility as a parent.
Yeah.
You know, however, I want to reach them before they have that situation. My heart is really with the youth and reaching them before they find themselves in a situation like this. Of course, I want to reach them before, so that if they actually do come into the situation, they have a trusted place, a trusted resource to come to.
Are kids listening? Are teenagers today, 15, 16, 17, listening? When you talk, I mean, are they listening? Are they connecting with you? Or is this something that...
No, you know, I've always found it quite easy to make a connection with a teenager. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what the draw is. You know, maybe because they can feel that I truly do care, my heart, my passion for them.
Maybe so, yeah.
But I've always found it to be easy to make a connection with a young person, with a teenager, and be able to find their listening ear and be able to speak to them in words that they understand, and hear them and hear their situation and not judge. That's really what they're looking for. They're looking for a place where they can speak and not be judged.
You know, we usually think of that's the role of mother, the role of father.
Yeah.
Are these kids without mothers, without fathers?
Not all the
time. Or are
time.
they without mothers and fathers that are not really involved and really are not teaching parents?
You know...
What's missing here?
Well, I read your book, and you make such great.
Doctor, teach me to parent.
That's it. And it has a lot of great points, and I think that that's a great point that you're making about the parents not being equipped, and oftentimes they're not. Oftentimes parents need help too. It's not just the teenagers that we're trying to reach that need the help and understanding and having an open place to just talk and be heard. But a lot of the times it is a situation where we do have to also ask if the parents would like to be involved. And that's the great thing about Bright Course and Kerman Care Center going into Bright Courses is because we're expanding to be not just to be a pregnancy resource center, but to be a pregnancy and family resource center. And so now we have the unique opportunity to not just reach the youth in our community, but to reach their parents.
The parents and the whole family, basically.
The whole family, yeah. And we have different tracks unique to their situation. So if it's a single mother, we have a track for her. She can come in and she can watch these educational videos, and they're interactive. They have text with that you write into the form and be able to present that to her and her to really interact with you and talk about that and talk through it and coach her, answer her questions about how to open up these discussions, how to approach her teenager. Sometimes they're dealing with teenagers who are just rebellious. They're going through things and they don't understand
and they're
why.
still a teenager themselves.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah. Especially for people like me who were a young teenage parent. And then now here you are. How old was I when my daughter? I was 15 when I had her, so I was 25, but 28 years old by the time she was. I was in my 20s.
Yes.
When you're going through that, you don't realize how young you are and how underdeveloped you are. It's just every day trying to understand a better way. I was blessed with the opportunity to study a little bit of child psychology, to understand about, some of the things that you talk about in your book about positive reinforcements and things like that. I was fortunate enough to have the understanding to do that with my children. Not all parents, especially teen parents, have they don't have the access to that kind of information. And with Bright Courses and with Kerman Care Center and what we're doing now, they do. They have that opportunity.
So I see
to
why you are
educate
now the
themselves.
director of the Kerman Care Center. I mean, you lived the message.
Yes.
I
did.
lived the message.
You
That's
lived
absolutely true.
the purpose of the
Yes.
center. You lived it.
I lived it.
And now you're in a position to bring somebody along.
Yeah, absolutely.
and reach out.
I understand the teenager
Yes.
and what the teenager is going through. I understand the parent and what the parent is going through. And I understand my role as executive director and the importance that our center has in our community. I understand how important it is to expand. I understand how valuable this new resource is to be able to reach them online. I understand all of it. I understand the business side and the personal side, both sides. So I feel like I'm in a good place. I feel like I have a lot to bring to the center.
Yeah. If you were going to say one thing, each of you, to the families of Kerman today regarding family life and and having quality family life, what's the message?
Quality family life.
I mean, if you're going to really build that family together and help them bond and be a quality family, what's the one piece of advice or message you have for them?
Communication.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
Communicate. Utilize the time that we have. A lot of us are busy, and I understand that in your book it says research says parents are finding, ways to spend more time with their kids.
They are.
And in a lot of cases that's true. There are parents like me who are truly trying to find that extra time. And then there are the parents who aren't. There's the parents who don't know how. And those are the parents that I want in. I want them to come into the center because I can show them how to use that small time from from your home to the Starbucks and back.
To talk and
Yeah, just to
and
talk.
bond.
And Starbucks, you're in line 20 minutes.
talk to your kid. I mean,
Talk to your kid.
get some interaction going. Build that
Right.
relationship.
Absolutely.
What would you
Absolutely.
add to that, Pat?
Oh, I think boundaries are very, very important because I
Boundaries.
think there's been a time that I've lived through where there's been a lot of latchkey kids at home, that both parents have ended up going to work, the kids have come home from school to an empty house.
Yeah.
There are no boundaries and there's no reinforcement because the parents aren't there to reinforce it. So I laugh at my own self. I used to set rules for my sons. And then I thought, how am I going to reinforce these rules when I'm not even there
You're
to
not
see
even
if they're
there to-
following them? And so I have seen the value of setting healthy boundaries for your children and for your own lives, you know, for your own self to walk through.
So boundaries really kind of say, within this range, you're free to do.
Yes,
But beyond that, no.
right,
There's a limit beyond which we don't go.
right,
And you got to communicate that.
right.
Yeah.
And you also, I think it's very important to let them see consequences of actions that they choose. Because as they're striving for independence, they're going to start breaking away from you, no matter what boundaries you've set.
Sure.
They're going to start testing the limits.
Sure.
And there's going to be consequences. And I think that was one thing when we actually got to participate in the sex education at the high schools in Kerman. Is letting them know, okay, these are the choices that you have before you.
Sure.
This would be the consequence of this choice. This would be the consequence of this choice. Because a lot of times the kids just jump into action. They
Sure,
don't
sure.
think about the
Yeah.
end result.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that we offer them when they come into Kerman Care Center is showing them the consequences of each of their decisions that
Sure.
they might make. So we're not there to make the decision
I'm
for
interested
them.
in the family that, we'll call them a young family.
Yes.
You know, you work with and you are focusing on the teenage family.
Yes.
But go backwards and say, okay, what about the family that has kids in the 5th grade, 6th grade, the elementary family? What's your message to the family?
To me, the most important thing is to continue to establish who the parent is in this family. There's
okay.
so many of these families that I've had moms come in and say, I don't know what to do. They're
Yeah.
just going crazy.
Like I'm the coach and you're the
Yes.
player, yeah.
And who is the boss here? And you have to establish for these families who is the boss and maintain that.
And
with
then
them.
and then maintain that into the teenage years.
Yes.
And that is a critical teaching.
Yeah, but along with that, if there's no respect for the parent, if the parent hasn't followed
Yeah.
their own boundaries that they're setting for the kids
Well,
aren't going to be likely to
No.
follow those.
Consistency, follow through.
Yes.
Yeah, do what you say.
Yes.
Do what you really
Not
want.
what I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Maria, what would you add to that in terms of the elementary family?
Well, if it's an elementary family that's really struggling the way that Pat was saying, I would just say, to remember that Kerman Care Center has expanded our education. And there are some tracks here that parents could come in and view for parents that are having difficulty with children that have ADD or ADHD or autism or just strong-willed
So you have
children.
educational programs that would address young families,
Yes.
not just the family in crisis
Absolutely.
or the teenage family in crisis.
Absolutely. We're expanding to kind of just catch it all, We want to be there for them through life. We're life affirming all the way through.
But if you're going to be preventative, you really have to start thinking about 4th graders, 5th graders,
Yes,
6th graders.
Absolutely.
Well,
in
and
the
you know,
family.
one thought is it takes two to tangle.
There you
There's
are.
men involved, and these young men, many of them have not had fathers. So they
No.
don't know how to be a father. So also one of the tracks is for the men, for the dads. A lot of them want to be a part of this child's
Yeah, they're
life.
often neglected. I was going to ask you that a little bit
Yes.
later, but yeah, that's true. The man is often kind of a non-entity.
Right.
We focus on the woman, we focus on the child, we focus on the pregnancy issue, but we don't focus on the
The father.
boy, the father, or the young man
Yeah,
that was involved.
that's right. And I have had them come in by themselves asking
Oh, I was
what
going to ask
they
about
can
that.
do.
Do guys come in? I mean,
They have come in
Absolutely.
and wanting to know what they can do to be a part of their child's
really?
life. Yes.
That's not an easy thing to do.
No, it isn't. And I have a lot of respect for those young men that actually do show an interest in wanting to be involved.
Yeah. So you have to reach out to them, I gather, too. When you talked about your outreach,
When we do
you know,
outreach,
you're
absolutely.
really trying to reach
we-
out to the young men as well.
Both, yeah, absolutely. When we're doing outreach, we're reaching out to both girls and boys, and you know, nobody really teaches abstinence anymore. Everybody teaches contraception. Everybody teaches, you know, all of these new ideas and things like that. But I want to really focus in on teaching these young people some integrity and some value in themselves, and the importance of waiting until you're in a committed relationship like marriage. There's just values that are they're not being taught anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So if somebody comes into your center, then what I hear you say is that they are offered the opportunity to watch some videos or take a course, basically, and some of it's video based and Zoom education and various kind of things we're doing today. And they can do it there at the center, or they can do it at their home.
Yes, whatever's
Either?
most convenient for them. Absolutely.
Whichever they prefer.
They do. They do have to come in for client intake. The first time they do have to come in person and sign up, and there is coaching that occurs between the client services coordinator and the person who's coming in looking for that support and education, the extra resources that Kerman Care Center can provide. And then they have the option then to do some videos online. If they're in Tranquility or Mendota or Fireball or any of the surrounding areas, and in transportation may be difficult, they still have the opportunity to get the same kind of education that they would if they came into the center.
Sure, yeah. You mentioned something a while ago when you're outreach. You go to the schools, you go to the churches, you go to youth groups of various kinds, wherever you can get a group together, I assume, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your word to the church? What's going on in the church today? Are they missing the boat? Are they being responsible to their teenagers in this area of their life? Are they ignoring it?
Well, the churches that work with us, that support the care center, I think that they have all been truly involved and with us and understanding us, and really just we're on the same page. We're delivering the same message. So, and that's how we continue to have all of their support.
Yeah. But are they doing anything beyond you? I mean, are churches today
absolutely.
doing something with the teenagers themselves?
Oh, sure.
Are they asking for help? Can you help them?
Yes. So they know that we're there and we're a valuable resource, and they do their own ministering during their youth congregation groups that they have for themselves.
Sure.
But the churches know and are educated on what we do, what we stand for, and they trust and believe that if they have a person who needs our help and our resources, they can refer them to us, and they know that those children will be taken care of, or parents.
Yeah, good. Hey, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
You've done very well. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, I'm going to ask you a question. And if you can just kind of reflect on this idea about the schools today. You know, it's a different world. Zoom education, and now schools might be opening, but are schools addressing this issue? Are schools are asking for help? Are they in need of help? Are the schools involved in this whole thing of helping prevent teenage pregnancy, or working with these kids that are involved in that whole process? So think about that for a minute. We'll come back and take a break, get a cup of coffee, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
When I set foot on the campus to come visit it, I was struck by how open and how welcoming the students and the professors were. Coming to Gordon was like coming home.
I think intentional community is what Jesus modeled with his disciples, and Gordon has really fostered a good place for intentional community to happen.
Gordon is a place where you can meet people from all over the world and hear their stories. I meet a lot of different people who are shaping who I am today.
Gordon seeks to graduate men and women of character and of leadership, and the world is the place where Gordon students belong.
Choosing to go to Gordon was, I think, one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I expect to be changed.
The in-house services we offer here are Total Life Change, anger management, one-on-one biblical counseling. We do a marriage enrichment, codependency and chemical dependency one-on-one counseling. We have a relapse prevention piece. We also do a lot of workshops where we inform and educate people on different topics. There is one-on-one individual sessions, and we also have group therapy that we work in a group. We find that can be so advantageous when you know you're not alone. The key is to call, email, online, and get a hold of one of the receptionists here, and we will do an assessment. We are not here to direct, guide, and force. We're here to meet you where you're at, then direct, then guide, and then give you options to break free.
The Green Gables Care Home is a 24-hour assisted living facility for the elderly located in Clovis, California, offering spacious private and semi-private rooms which are wheelchair approved, catering to the special person in your life who needs attention and wants to live in a loving home environment. The Green Gables Care Home has assisted living in secured homes for elderly with Alzheimer's, memory loss, and for your loved ones needing assistance with their activities of daily living. Call 559-297-9438 and visit greengablescarehome.com.
Sometimes good intentions hurt rather than help. For just $1.76 per meal, the Fresno Rescue Mission offers more than food. We offer hope. Please donate today.
Do you need a locksmith? Layman's Lock and Safe Service and Repair is available for you. 559-228-1805.
Gained a lot, learned a lot, and got a lot of love. If it weren't for the knowledge that I had gained from the classes at PCC, I probably wouldn't be the mom I am today. See, there it goes.
I would love you to meet my son, Aaron. My situation was very difficult. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out.
We graduated in June 2010, and we got married in July. And through family, the Pregnancy Care Center changed our lives.
The Pregnancy Care Center was a huge, vital part in helping me walk through that pregnancy, in educating me and loving on me during that time.
Choosing a Medicare plan can be difficult and frustrating. Susan Hatch can guide you through the Medicare maze and help find the right plan for you. Susan helps people understand the confusing and drastic changes that occur every year in Medicare. Susan will only recommend plans that will protect your assets and allow you to continue to see your personal doctor. As a 100% independent agent, Susan is not controlled by any particular insurance company to steer a person onto any one particular plan. Susan was awarded the #1 Medicare supplement agent in California. Look for Susan's Medicare question and answers every Monday in the Fresno Bee. Call Susan at 559-307-2287 and visit MedicareToday.net. dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com.
Try to close the club. Tanya, come here. At Boys and Girls Clubs, it's not just about trying new things.
Kitchen in my hometown.
It's not about learning the right steps. 4 or making contact.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not about exploring the future. It's about helping them build it. It's about taking steps to greatness. About making a connection. It's about proving every kid and teen has what it takes. It's about people in our clubs who bring out the greatness in every kid who enters our doors. It's not just about being on stage. It's about walking across it. Great futures start here, and here, and here.
Sat7 is a Christian media network that uses uncensored satellite television to broadcast across the Middle East and North Africa, and is also available globally online.
Okay, welcome back to Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Kerman Care Center today is our organization we're focusing on. And through that organization, we're looking at the world of the teenager in crisis. Crisis because of a teenage pregnancy. And Pat Goosev is the founder of the Kerman Care Center some 10, 12 years ago. And sharing with us a lot of experience, not only there, but as a nurse and working in other pregnancy care centers before that. So we appreciate your wisdom and your experience. And then Maria Pacheco, who's the current director of the Kerman Care Center. And I've been doing it just now 2 months, but you've had a wide range of experience bringing to this job, and you're doing very well and creating a new system.
Kind of understanding how God has worked throughout my life and leading me to where I am.
And you're doing more education right now. You're not just the individual counseling with kids,
Right.
but you're doing much more education, more preventative work.
Yes.
And helping kids think through decision making and their lifestyle and their life decisions.
Right.
So I think it's great.
Actions and consequences. Actions and consequences.
Now, before the break, I asked you this question about schools.
Mhm.
Are you welcome in schools? Are schools open? Can you come in schools and talk to kids, or is that a closed environment today?
Well, there was a time that Kerman Care Center did do some education in the surrounding schools there.
I see.
However, separation with the church and state made it quite difficult to present some of the literature that we had at that time, bring in some of the people that we were bringing in to talk to the kids about certain situations that they found themselves in. And sometimes those situations had faith-based solutions.
Mm-hmm.
They found Jesus Christ, and that it made it difficult to do those types of presentations in schools. And so we lost the ability to present there at the schools at that time. However, now that I'm here as the sitting executive director for Kerman Care Center, I have some ideas on how we can get back into the schools and how we can present some things without having to present or in a kind of a ministering kind of way. And so I'm working on that right now, and hopefully, hoping to be able to develop relationships again with the surrounding schools and be able to get ourselves back into the schools and be able to present some of our abstinence courses and things like that, so that kids, they do hear that message, and not just the message of how to use contraception and things like that they're learning now.
It's a dilemma, because we all know that a teenager becoming pregnant at 15 has got a tough role in life. You've gone through it, you know what it is. It's a tough way, and you would think, that schools, and no matter what the philosophies are, that we would want to prevent kids having that bad experience in life and a bad start to life and just a hard way to live life.
Yeah.
You would think that we'd want to do everything we can to prevent somebody from experiencing that.
Absolutely.
But sometimes we don't think that way. We don't seem to care, that somebody has to go through some tough times in life, and that's just their problem, so to speak. So I encourage you, that not only through the schools, but the churches and other organizations in the cities that you work with.
Thank you. I need all the
just get in there
encouragement
where
I
the
can
kids
get.
are.
Yes. I need all the encouragement and support.
But tell me
I can
about the
get.
kid who succeeds. There's a lot of successes in our world of teenagers, and not because they're pregnant or not, but they really succeed in life.
Yes.
Some succeed in life in spite of the problems they have to go through, in spite of the difficulties that they have to live with. You're an example of that. You succeeded after going through a tough time from age 15 on.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't want to wish that on anybody.
No.
But yet you succeed. So what makes a kid successful?
What made me successful?
Okay, let's start with you.
Raising children and having the understanding and the heart that I had for children before I actually even knew that I understood or had the heart for children, right? Because I didn't really even understand what I was going through at 15 or 17, when I had my second. I had 2 children by the time I was 18.
Yeah.
I have a 16-year-old son at home right now, and I look at him and I can't imagine him being a parent.
Yeah.
He's such a baby. and really right when I had a teenager, when my oldest child that I had when I was 15, when she turned 15, was the first time that I was just like, oh my God.
That's right.
I was just a baby. How did I become a parent
And I'll
at
bet
that
you
age?
experienced a little bit of a trauma right then, a little bit of a scare
Yeah.
in life, because you were in that place 15 years earlier. Yeah.
Right. And I raised my children with a motto, if you're old enough to ask the question, then you're old enough to get the answer. And I think that that's truly important.
Well said.
In parenting today. A lot of the time when I come in contact with other parents or I'm having a discussion with another parent, it often comes across that they don't know how to talk about difficult things with their children.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Afraid
of that almost. Yeah.
Afraid. And that's another service that we offer there at the center, is just opening up that conversation with the parent of how to open that conversation with their child.
Yeah.
And so having my daughter turn 15 and watching her grow and realizing what I had actually gone through and actually done, I wanted better for her, right? I wanted her to make better decisions. And so I always wanted to make sure that if they were old enough to ask the question, they were old enough to get the answer. And I can't go and tell you live what some of those questions turned out to be.
Oh, I bet.
And the situations that I got myself in. But being that and having that and living that, I'm able to have those open conversations with other parents without any kind, I don't feel embarrassed to have these tough conversations, and I'm able to talk to them and with humor about my situation and the things that my children asked, and the answers that I had to give, and then you build that relationship with them so that they can understand how to communicate with their children. And being successful, my success, I think, is just in the ability to speak. just in the ability to communicate.
I find just sometimes telling a kid, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Or let me ask you something.
I have
Just that is a door opener.
I have 2 kids who are coming to the center right now. They're sisters. I have 2 of them in the center who say that the most benefit that they're getting from coming to the center is to be able to ask a question and get an answer. That simple. Parents just don't know how to
So
answer
you become
those
a kind of a
tough
question-answer place, a question-answer time.
Fact-based.
Yes.
We want to really make sure that they are getting the facts.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so we're not talking about Cabbage Patches or or the stork or anything like that, where it's fact-based. If they're old enough to ask the question, that means it's in their mind, it's in their hearts, and if they don't find the answer from a responsible adult who's willing to really discuss the consequences of their actions, they're going to ask somebody out there. They're going to Google it on the internet. They're going to do whatever they need to do to get that answer. And it might not always be the truth. It might not always be the best for them. And so we just want to make sure that they're that they're
Well, one of the
understanding
questions that I
and
have is we have this phenomenon of the teenage kid who becomes pregnant. But it doesn't just start there. It starts somewhere else. It starts earlier. There's a kind of a pathway of steps. And I don't know if it's 2 steps or 8 steps or what the
It's
number of
different for
steps that
everyone.
brings it to the point where now we have this crisis pregnancy of a 15-year-old girl. What's the path? What's the steps that you find is the way that these kids get into this thing, and that could be prevented by avoiding those steps?
I don't understand. What you're asking me, like, how did a person find themselves in a situation of being a
and
teen
what are
mom?
the steps that brings it to that point and allows that to happen?
Okay. Well, I think that there's a show on MTV called Teen Mom. Have you ever seen that
Yes.
show?
Mhm.
And there's a website that they often refer their guests to. It's like talkaboutsex.org or mysexlife.org or something like that. And I honestly believe that it's, again, lack of communication with their parents. I think a lot of kids find themselves in a situation where they put a lot of focus on whether or not they're in love. I mean, teenagers believe that they're in love so often. And in that, they believe that the next step of being in love is being intimate.
Sure.
And a lot of them don't understand that intimacy has there's so much involved with intimacy, and it goes way beyond their sex life. And so I really feel that it's just that misunderstanding that they have of what love is.
That's kind of a profound answer in a way. You're really saying if we have the lack of communication in the home with the parents, they aren't talking with each other. They're not really relating to each other. They're not spending time together.
Well, even if they are relating to each other or talking, they might just not be talking about the right things.
Okay.
Or maybe they are spending time together, but they're still not talking about what's on the kid's mind. A lot of
what's
people
going on in a kid's life.
They don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
Or they're embarrassed to.
Or they're embarrassed to.
So that kid then
absolutely.
goes elsewhere to talk to other people. Where the parents didn't.
Right.
And now we're in a path.
Now we're in a path.
And that could very well lead to a teenage pregnancy.
Absolutely.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that's
Well,
one of the ways that they can
That's
find
one of the
themselves.
steps. Mhm.
One of the things that can happen.
And they have a circle of friends that they develop. And I know a lot of kids in the search for love, if they're not feeling loved at home, even though their parents could love them to death, but if that isn't coming across to the child, the child is going to look for love someplace else. And you see them getting involved in gangs.
What's that phrase? Looking for love in all the wrong places.
All the wrong places, that's right.
Yeah.
So they start looking for love through gang memberships, through peer groups at school, community, other circles where they're going to get that love and affirmation. And so if that's not a healthy group, if they're not, in a group that is Christ-like, that the kids have had a strong foundation, and they're aiming for a career, they're aiming for a witness in their life of Christ. If they're looking for different affirmations in life, then they're going to lead your child who's looking for love in the wrong direction. And so maybe that direction is, how many times have you had sex? Well, if you haven't had any, shame on you. You know, you're not experiencing the fullness of life. And then they start hearing lies. To me, those are lies that they get.
They believe the lies,
And
yeah.
they believe those lies. And so they start living those lies. And then you just see it's a downhill course. You know, they end up just getting deeper and deeper
So
in
it's
trouble,
not so
and they
much
don't
then
see.
steps, it's more of kind of a skid.
A free
Real
fall.
slippery.
There you go.
Yeah.
We speak about the slippery slope, and that's the case itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's just so many ways. Every person has a different story.
Sure,
So
sure.
there's no way of even just having the time to discuss all of the different steps of what led a person to this situation. I know of a girl who did everything right. Parents raised her in church, and she had the best grades that she could have, and her and her boyfriend were in a very loving and committed relationship, and they did truly want to wait until they were married, and then had an oops.
Yeah.
You had an oops, you know, and in that oops, you know, she ended up finding herself in a situation where she was going to be a teenage mom. She wasn't too young. She was 18 at the time. It's still a teenage pregnancy.
Sure, sure.
You know, and a lot of the time, you know, the girls that find themselves in these situations are people who are attending churches and things like that. And in fact, they're more vulnerable for abortion than girls that are not going to church, because there's more judgment based around that.
Sure.
You know, so there's so many ways of finding yourself in a situation where you're a teen mom. It's not just one thing. It's not just that they're not communicating with their parents.
Yeah.
It's not just that they're not going to church. It's not just that, you know, there's so many different things. And then you have all of this media, you know, you have TV, and you have these songs on the radio, you know. I hate to mention this, but, you know, there was a song that came out, and I'm not going to say the person's name, but it was a very vulgar song that came out recently, you know, addressing girls and their sexuality. And I'm watching social media, and I have people who are my age, real people. This is not people that are, you know, on a commercial or on TV. This is real life people who have their toddler, and they're having their toddler dance to this kind of vulgarity, and it's funny, and it's, you know, and then they put it online and things like that. And it's just, I mean, there's just so much dysfunction. There's so much going on in the world today.
And how do you teach a kid to turn it off? You know, to say no. You know, to not watch that kind of video or YouTube or...
How would they know if you didn't tell them? How would they know?
There you are.
You know,
And
so
you're there to
again,
tell them.
Again,
That's what the Kerman
it's
Center's all about.
communication. It's communication. And so I communicate with my kids every day. Every day I have a conversation with all of them, and I have 6. I have communication with all of my children.
Beautiful.
And, you know, and I have that has been experience for me to come into the center and also be able to have that opportunity to talk to my client services coordinator openly about the things that I think are important. And then for her to also, she's very similar in personality to me. Elsa, I love her. Hey, if you're watching. And she also is very, you know, youth-minded, and she's very open and about communicating, and so we can have these conversations. And I just keep going back, because for me, it's all about communications, communicating to the kids, sending the right message, developing a relationship with a kid so that they can see me as an example, so they trust me, so that I have a rapport, I have a relationship with all of the youth in Kerman. And it goes beyond the Kerman Care Center. I mean, we have to get involved in so many different ways so that they have places to go to develop those relationships outside of the center.
So let me ask you this question. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you and have some communication with you, or wanted to have service, or, you know, meet with you in some way, you have a website.
I do.
And it's on the screen in front of you, I think, and we're going to have, you'll have access to you through the website, or you have a telephone number, or how is that done?
Yeah, so both my website and my phone number are listed on the screen. If there's a kid in our community, or a parent, or a father, anybody who needs any kind of services, really, I mean, we're beyond pregnancy care. We're a family resource center. So if there's any questions that you have to see if maybe a specific situation that you're going through, you might need some help, absolutely give me a call.
So what if somebody did not live in Kerman? They lived in Fresno, they lived in Clovis, they lived in Visalia.
Well, and we find opportunities everywhere, right? And so with COVID, we've actually had the opportunity to expand and go online. So we do have the ability to reach people in Fresno.
They don't have to be
Clovis.
from Kerman.
They do not have to be from Kerman, no.
That's good to know.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because you're really now available to anybody, basically.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I hope that they're responding to that. I hope that you're getting calls in and
Yeah, we're it's starting to pick up.
develop now with yeah. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having us.
Pat, you did a wonderful thing 12 years ago
Thank you.
and kept doing it for 12 years.
God did it. I didn't do it. He pulled me out.
And now you pass the wand
There you
over
go.
to Maria, and it's a tremendous, I mean, it's different ideas now and a different direction and a different day, and
Yes.
I'm sure you're proud of what's going on here.
Actually, God will extend the work once you drop out. So I have no fear in my heart that if now as a resigning member of the Kerman Care Center, the strong work won't go on through
beautiful.
Maria, who God also
I'm glad you could
called.
say that, and today's
Thank
a good
you.
day to say that.
Yes, thank you.
So thanks for joining us today, and remember, Dr. Teach Me to Parent. You can pick it up on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any bookstore, so it's a great book for you. It's a textbook on parenting, so I invite you to pick up your copy. Anyway, thanks for now. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.